Hi all, this is Battle Rep 4, and this is a game between my Ogres at 2,400 points and my friends Beastmen at 2,700. Why? We're using the ETC comp rules for 2014, and it gives an added boost up to the Beastmen. I'll put a link to the comp down below. For my Ogres, I'm using 2,400 points. I have a Slaughtermaster level 4, who's on Heavens. They have the Warrior Bane Sword, a Charmed Shield, the Earthing Rod, and the Crown of Command. I've got a Bruiser BSB with a Great Weapon and Heavy Armour, and he's got the Rune Maw. I've got a Butcher level 2, who's on Great Maw, and he has a Hell Heart. Because he's got this under the comp, he can't take a Dispel Scroll. I've got 9 Iron Guts full command, and then a small unit with 3 Iron Guts, just with a Musician. I've then got 10 Nobblers, just basic Nobblers, a unit of 6 Man-Eaters who have a brace of pistols each, and they've got Poison and Sniper. I've got 5 Mournfang with Heavy Armour and Iron Fist and a Dragonhide Banner. I've got 3 Saber Tusks and an Iron Blaster. Beastmen's are at 2,700 points, and they can take a bigger block of unit up to 500 points for 1 unit, and they can also take banners on the Gores and the Minotaurs. So the list starts off with a Beast Lord with Brass Cleaver, Blackened Plate, Talisman of Preservation. He's then got a Bray Shaman level 2 with a Herdstone on Shadow, a Bray Shaman level 2 Shadow, and again a Bray Shaman level 1 Lore of Beast and Dispel Scroll. So quite a formidable little bit of magic coming there. He's got a Doom Ball with the Sword of Anti-Heroes, which is going to give me a load of grief during this game. He's got the Armour of Destiny. He's got a Dragonbane Gem and Gnarled Hide. We run closed lists, so it was a bit of a surprise for me when we started combat. He's then got a Wargore BSB with the Beast Banner. He's got a Gore Herd, 40 of them with extra hand weapons, full command. He's got an Ungor Herd, 15 with full command, 15 more Ungor Herd with full command, 5 Minotaurs, 10 Centaurs with Musician and Standard, and then he's got 4 units of 6 Ungor Raiders, and he tops it all off with a Gorgon. There's going to be quite a few troops on the table for the Beastmen, and a really interesting game. Using the comp, it was really interesting to see how the game worked. For my level 4 on Heavens, I got Comet of Cassandora, Curse of the Midnight Wind, Harmonic Convergence and Chain Lightning, which was pretty good. And for my Great Maw, I got Troll Guts and Bull Gorger. 2 quite useful ones, give a little bit of strength, but the regen, if I could get it off, would be useful. So for Beastman's magic, my friend gets Enfeebling Foe, the Withering, Melchios Mystifying Miasma, and Occam's Mindrazor. For his Beast mage, he gets Wisson's Wild Form. So some nice little debuffs that he can use on my troops to cause them a bit of trouble. For the terrain, the ETC put out a set of tabletop configurations, and that's what we used in this game. The rules around it are all buildings and hills are infinitely high, the buildings are impassable, and the woods and things like that are just normal. I won the roll to put the first unit down and led off with my Saber Tusks. Deployment went through, and I'll go through that in more detail, but Colin's army was down first, so he will be getting the +1 to take first turn. So let's move on to the deployment. Starting from right to left, he had his Gorgon. He then had a unit of 6 Ungor Raiders. Behind the hill, he had his unit of Centaurs. He had another unit of Ungor Raiders to the centre, and then his big Gore Beast Horde. The Gore Herd had his BSB and his Beast Lord. You then had a unit of Ungor Raiders in front. To the left of the herd were some Ungors, and behind them was his unit of Minotaurs with his Doom Ball. To their left, or to their right, he then had his Shamans gathered around the Herdstone. to get the added benefit of the extra casting dice. My aim was to try and neutralise the wizards by getting in there with my saber tusks and the Mournfangs if I could. To the right and our left of his wizards, he had another unit of Ungor in the ranked up formation. And to the extreme left of the picture, if you're looking at it, is his final unit of 6 Ungor Raider skirmishers, facing off against my saber tusk. For my deployment, I was trying to separate his Minotaurs and his herd, so putting the Mournfangs up on the left, use a building to split them, and put my Iron Guts and the Man-Eaters to the right to actually take on the herd. Unfortunately, it didn't really go that way. So for my deployment, on the far left, I've got a unit of Nobblers, then 3 Iron Guts, a saber tusk, then my Iron Blaster, then my Man-Eaters, and just to the right of those, I then had my Iron Guts. Should really have moved them further over to the Man-Eaters to do the splitting of the Beastmen. As you can see, to the left of the Iron Guts and the character block, I put the Mournfangs down, and then to their left, another saber tusk, and finally the last saber tusk to the far left. Beastmen get first turn, and Colin moves the scouting Ungor Raiders right up front to get in front of my Iron Guts, tempting them to charge so he could counter charge with either his Centicles or his Gore. In the centre, the Beastmen move forward, and again on the left flank they also move forward, just to get themselves in a better position against my troops. During Magic, the initial roll is 6-4, but with the Herdstone it ends up 12-6 to the Beastmen. Colin manages to get Mystified Miasma off on the Mournfang, reducing them down, and then he gets Occam's on the Gore unit with Irresistible Force and does 1 wound to 2 of the Shamans. The Miasma on the Mournfang means they were down 2 strength, and the Ungors in front of them had Occam's Mind Razor on them, so it did make me think twice about trying to charge them. Nothing really happens in the shooting phase. He manages to put 1 wound on Mournfangs, and then we move on to the Ogres turn 1. Ogre turn 1, I declare a charge with the Mournfangs, with the Ungor that have got Occam's up, and I think, well, it's still worth a chance. And I charge with the Saber Tusk on the far flank, the Ungor Raiders, but both fail. On my right flank, I declare a charge with the Nobblers into the flank of the Ungor Raiders. I'm thinking that, yeah, if I can beat them, I'll then hold with the Nobblers, and then it gives me an opportunity to flee from the Gorgon, and the Gorgon won't come into my Iron Guts. In the centre, the Iron Blaster takes aim at the Gorgon, and I move up the Man-Eaters to level with the front of the house, and with the Iron Guts move them up on the other side of the house. Onto Ogre Magic, and I'm thinking that in my shooting phase I'm going to take out the BSB in the Beast Herd, in the Gore Herd. So I go for Bull Gorger and Harmonic Convergence on the Man-Eaters, and I get it. I also go for a cheeky little Chain Lightning on the Shamans huddling around the Herdstone, but Colin pulls out his Dispel Scroll and stops it. During the shooting phase, with the buffs of Harmonic Convergence on the Man-Eaters and their poison sniping, I'm able to take out the Beastman BSB, which is a good result. The Iron Blaster manages to take 4 wounds off the Gorgon, a good result there as well. On the right flank, the Nobblers did indeed beat the Ungor Raiders and got them to flee, but I decided to stand with the Nobblers, as if I pursued an overrun, it would have left me really in range of the Gorgon and the Centicles, who could then just burst through them and then smack into my Iron Guts, and then I'd be losing that flank very quickly. I wanted a bit more time, so I stood with them and reformed. I also thought that the Ungor Raiders had a good chance of getting in the way of the Centicles charging into the Iron Guts in that turn, again keeping them safe for another turn at least. Beastman turn 2, and yeah, as I thought he would, Colin declares a charge with a Gorgon on the Nobblers, and I flee with them. He also decides to take out my Chaff, and he charges my Saber Tusk on the left and my Saber Tusk on the right. Not liking the odds, I flee with both of them, and fortunately they both escape, but it does mean that his troops are in positions which are not perhaps so good for him when he's considering charging. The Ungol that fled from the Nobblers still continue on fleeing, but now they get themselves in the way of the Man-Eaters and the Gore Herd, which is quite good for me, keeps the Man-Eaters safe for another turn. On to Beastmen Magic, and the dice are 8-5 in their favour. Colin gets Ockrams on the Ungol block, which he moved up to put in front of my Iron Guts, so he was trying to stop the charge on the Minotaurs. He gets Irresistible Force, Enfeeble the Foe on the Man-Eaters, and they go down to -3 strength, and he still have enough dice left after the miscast to still try and get Wissons on the Gore, which fortunately I stop. The other Ungol block that fled from the Mournfang continue their flee towards the back of the table. Beastman shooting does nothing, and then we move on to the Ogres turn 2. Here's a close-up of the Man-Eaters facing off against the Gore Herd, with the Ungol Raiders keeping them apart, saving me for another turn. Ogres turn 2, and I declare a charge with the Sabre Tusk on the left flank against the Ungol Raiders, who elect to flee, so the Sabre Tusk fails its charge. In the centre, we measured the distance between the house and the Ungol, and there was enough room to get the Iron Guts through into the Minotaurs, which I did. I then charged the Mournfangs into the Ungol unit. I was hoping that the Iron Guts were going to be able to take out the Minotaurs or really thin them down and do a lot of damage. However, I was in for a nasty surprise. On the right flank, I charged the Iron Guts into the Ungol Raiders in front of me, but Colin elects to flee, and I then choose to redirect towards the Centaurs, trying to get out of the arc of the Gorgon. Unfortunately, I failed the redirect distance needed, and they stopped short, allowing Colin to get a good charge in on me on the next phase. Magic, and it's 6 dice to 5 for the Ogres, and I get off Bullgorger but on the Man-Eaters, but Colin stops the Troll Guts on the Iron Guts to prevent them getting regen against the Minotaurs. Shooting's a bit of a mixed bag. With the Man-Eaters, even with the reduced strength, they still managed to put 2 wounds on the Beast Lord, which is a good result. The cannon, however, aims at the Gorgon, gets a misfire, gets a 1, and now cannot shoot. Gets a 2, sorry, and now cannot shoot for the rest of the game. Combat is pretty brutal, and the Mournfang almost wipe out to a man the Ungols, but I hold with them to try and get a better charge on the Minotaurs to support the Iron Guts. However, the Iron Gut combat is absolutely horrendous. This is where I find out that the Doombull has a sword of anti-heroes. I've got 3 characters in the Iron Guts, so he's going to get +3 strength and +3 attacks. All told, the Minotaur unit does 12 wounds, and I managed to do 11 wounds back with the Iron Guts. When the combat res was all added up, the Minotaurs and the Doombulls had lost by 2, but they roll and stick on a 7. That causes me real grief. If they had run, that would have been a real bonus for me. Beastmen turn 3, and the Ogres are in for a bit of an onslaught. Colin decides to charge the Ungol Raiders into the flank of the Iron Guts, and then charge the Gorgon into the front of the Iron Guts. That clears a space for the Gore Herd to charge into the Man-Eaters. The final charge is the Centaurs into the flank of the Man-Eaters. Obviously I'm going to have to stand for all of this. Here's a shot of the 3 Iron Guts awaiting their fate from the charge of the Gorgon and the Ungol Raiders. A bit of luck came my way, and the Centaurs, who needed 13, rolled triple 1s. Q. I was happy there. Magic is 8 to 5, and Colin targets the Iron Guts with a spell to reduce their weapon skill. I use the Rune Maul, but roll a 1. So the Man-Eaters go down to weapon skill 1. He then tries to go for Enfeeble the Foe, but fails to cast it, and then tries to Wissons, but I manage to stop it with my Dispel dice. Shooting is ineffective, so we move on to the combat phase, and again it gets messy. The combat between the Doombull and the Minotaurs and the Iron Guts is utter carnage. The Doombull gets left on its own, and for my Iron Guts I'm left with the Banner Bearer and the Bellower and my 3 characters. Absolutely brutal. Once again, the Doombull survives on his leadership. Another bit of luck is a Gore herd failing their fear test, so they're going to need 5s to hit me. This really was quite a godsend, and I only managed to lose 2 of the man-eaters. However, I did enough wounds on the Gore herd to be able to pass my leadership and stand. On the right flank, the Gorgon manages to only do 2 wounds to the Iron Guts, and the Ungor Raiders do nothing. In return, the Iron Guts take the last 2 wounds off of the Gorgon and kill it. The Iron Guts even pass their break test and stand ready to face the next onslaught. Ogre turn 3, and I charge the Iron Blaster into the Gore herd to support the Man-Eaters. Magic is 12 to 6 in favour of the Ogres, and I go for a 4 dice Curse of the Midnight Wind and get it off with 3 6s. This was on the Gore herd, which was a good result, but I do lose 3 dice from the pool, and then Colin is able to stop Troll Guts, which I wanted on the Man-Eaters to save them a bit. In the Doomfall fight, I thought my only option was to put forward my unit champion. I was hoping that with the maximum number of wounds he could put on the champion, I would still be stubborn and be able to pass my break test to keep them in the fight long enough for the Mournfang to get into the flank. Fortunately, this is exactly what happened, and I was able to stick on steadfast and stay. This time, when I'm attacking the Gore herd, I remember to focus on the Beast Lord and kill him. With the Iron Blaster going in, unfortunately only did 1 impact hit, but with the attacks and the wounds from the rest of the Man-Eaters, I'm able to break the Beastmen unit. They flee, and I pursue with the Man-Eaters only, and they get away, which comes back to haunt me a little bit later. I think why I didn't pursue with the Iron Blaster as well was because it would have given, if I'd failed it, it would have given the Centigores a much easier charge on the flank to then wipe up the Man-Eaters, who could then go into the side of my Iron Guts with my characters. So the Iron Blaster stood to take a charge next from the Centigores, but it was going to be a much safer for me. On the right, the Ungor Raiders passed their Primal Fury and managed to do 2 wounds on the Iron Guts, who don't do any in return. The Iron Guts then fail the leadership test, break, and are run down by the Ungor Raiders. Beastman turn 4, and I decide to use a Hellheart. His Shamans are between 6 inches and 15 inches away. I roll a 1, and it's 5d6 range, and I miss them totally. The Centigores, as I predicted, charge into the Iron Blaster, and then Colin moves up his Ungor Raiders to chaff up my Mournfang, saving him another turn from them hitting his Doombull in the flank. Much to my disgust, the Gore rally, and then in his magic phase, Colin rolls and gets enough dice to go 12-6 in his favour. Oh, why did I roll a 1 for the Hellheart? Colin irresistibly forces Wissons on the Gore, but rolls a 12, loses no dice from the pool. I'm able to stop miasma, but he then gets withering off on the Man-Eaters, so they're now toughness -1. On to combat, and I'm again trying to keep the Iron Guts and my characters steadfast. So I decide to offer up the Slaughtermaster, and fortunately I'm left with 1 wound on the Slaughtermaster. I'm not so fortunate with the Iron Blaster, and the Centigores wipe it out and reform and turn to face the rear of my Man-Eaters. So we then go on to Ogre turn 4. Ogre turn 4, and we have some charges. Finally my Saber Tusk can get into the Ungor Raiders, and my Mournfangs charge those pesky Ungors that had got in the way of me and the Doombull. So I'm hoping that I can beat them off, survive with my Iron Guts and characters in time to get the Mournfang into the Doombull. We shall see. Magic is 7-5 to the Ogres, and Colin allows me Harmonic Convergence off of the Man-Eaters, but I roll a good 27 for Troll Guts, but he gets 3 6s to stop it. Shooting, the 3 remaining Man-Eaters whittle down the Gore a bit more, just making them a little bit more of an easy target if I get a chance to get them again. Yep, as expected, the Mournfang eat the Ungor Raiders, and in the challenge, the Slaughtermaster takes his final wound, but still steadfast, and they remain there. I'm hoping that I can survive another turn to allow the Mournfangs to get in on the Doombull. The Saber-Tusk beats the Ungors and they flee on the far left. Beastmen turn 5 and they're in for some revenge. The Gore herd charge the Man-Eaters and the Ungor Raiders charge the Man-Eaters in the flank. Magic, and is a real difficult decision. Colin's got 10 dice to 6. I'll have to allow the Wissons onto the Man-Eaters. I have to make a decision whether I allow enfeeblement or the withering off. I decide to stop the withering, so Man-Eaters are now at -2 strength from enfeeblement. During movement, Colin gets the Centaurs in a better position to charge the Man-Eaters in the rear, and he moves his Shaman around the herdstone to stop them being charged by my Saber-Tusks. In combat, I have to make a decision, and I give the Butcher up to the Doomball this turn. Yeah, once again, Doomball slaying machine, kills the Butcher, but I do stand. Mournfang into the flank of the Doomball on my turn. Man-Eaters pay the penalty for not running the Gore down. They do whittle them down even more, but no, the Man-Eaters are wiped out totally. The Gore herd then turn to face a possible attack from the Mournfangs. Finally, I get the Mournfang into the flank of the Doomball. We had to have a quick look at the rules here to see what happens first, and as Colin was declaring a challenge. But the impact hits from the Mournfang go before the challenge, and I was able to put 2 wounds on the Doomball. In the challenge, the BSB survived. Only did 2 wounds, and with the combat res, the Doomball fails, flees, and I catch him with the Mournfang, who then overrun into the Gore herd. The remaining Iron Gut and BSB also pursue, and they hit the Gore herd as well. Yep, not a bad result, but it took such a long time to get there. During movement, I'd finally got the Saber-Tusks into a position where they could at least get a charge in on the Shamans. One had quite an easy charge, the other had quite a long charge. You never know, might get them in and to take some points. As the Shamans were only on 1 wound each, I was really hopeful that the Saber-Tusk could take them out. Beastman turn 6, and it's getting down to the wire. Colin charges in the Centaurs into the flank of the Iron Gut and the BSB. In Magic, it's 8 dice to 3, so there's a little bit coming my way. Colin's able to get Enfeebling Foe on the Mournfang, so they're now -2 strength. He also gets Mystifying Miasma on them, so they're now -3 weapon skill. He's really trying to save the Gore here. However, it was all to no avail, and the Mournfang kill all the Gore herd. The Centaurs, however, do manage to kill the Iron Guts standard bearer, but Colin decides to stand with them rather than go into the BSB. Ogre turn 6, but there's very little to do, so I charge the Shaman with the Saber-Tusks, and only one Saber-Tusk makes it in and fails to wound. And the Shaman passes its leadership test, and that's the end of the game. Under the ETC rules, when you're tallying up the army results, you score 10% less victory points against the Beastmen. When everything was all added up, it was a 10-10 draw. Points wise, it was an 85-point win to the Ogres, but as I say, it's a 10-10 draw, so what a game. What was left of the armies? The Ogres, it was the Mournfang Cavalry, the BSB, 3 Saber-Tusks, and I think the Nobblers. For the Beastman, he had his 3 Shamans left, and his Centaurs, and a unit of Ungor Raiders. Very bloody. Overall, I think my strategy would have worked, if it hadn't have been for that Doomball. What a nasty piece of work. As we played with closed lists, I had no idea what we were going to come up against, and that was a really nasty shock for me. However, a really good game, very enjoyable, and ETC Comp certainly balances out the armies and allows the Beastmen a bit more survivability with what they can take. Hats off to Colin, because I thought he used his chaff in a really good way and caused me lots of trouble. They stopped the Saber-Tusk getting into the Shamans and really slowed the Mournfang up from going round and getting into the flank of the Doomball and then into the rest of the Beastman army. Many thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, please remember to hit the like button below, and also subscribe to my channel. My next battle report should be a 2,400 point Chaos Demons against Empire. This will be my most recent game from the Flatlands League that we're currently playing in the east of England. So, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.